To begin creating a Smart Learning Suite interactive lesson, what you'll do is start with an existing presentation that you already have. So to get started, what I'm going to do from my dashboard, I'll click Add Activities. And then I'm going to need to import the lesson that I want to work with. So that could be a Smart Notebook file, it could be PowerPoint, PDF, or any Google type of file. So you'll take your file and you can actually grab it from your local computer. You can grab something that's already existing in your Smart Learning Suite dashboard or library, or I can go to my Google Drive and open up a new presentation. So I'm going to choose something from here. When you first go to import it, it will ask you which pages from the document do you want to add into Smart Learning Suite. You don't have to bring the entire file in. You can pick and choose which slides or pages you want to bring in. So here it comes up, and it does automatically select everything, but if I decided I didn't want all of these and I really just wanted to bring in a few of the slides, I could just click the ones that I wanted and only use the slides that I want. For this presentation, I'll use them all. Once the presentation is loaded, it automatically puts you into editing mode. And in the editing mode, there's a few things that are of note. Number one, you have all of your slides that you can navigate through on the left-hand panel. We will use this plus sign to add ready-made activities, and I'll show you that in a second. You can also click on any slide and you can delete it by clicking on the trash can. If you would like to record directions, audio directions onto any of your slides, you would click on the slide and then click on the audio, and it'll say allow microphone access, and what it will do is it'll allow you to start recording directions right directly on the slide. This works great if you're going to use it as a as a student-paced activity that they're going to create on their own, so you can give them audio directions as if you're speaking to the class. We'll cover that a little bit more when we talk about delivering your lessons. There's also the option to convert any of your pages to activities. They could either be individual activities or collaborative workspace activities. We'll be covering this in the next section of the class. You do have access to a few tools here. So you can select items on your slides. You can also add text to your slides or pictures on the fly. So you can do some basic editing in here. But generally, this Smart Learning Suite is designed not really to edit or create presentations, but just to add interaction to something that already exists. So in order to get started, like for instance, at this particular locate a Spanish-speaking country on your map, I can turn this or make any of these ready-made activities, or I can make them collaborative activities as well. We're going to start with the ready-made in this section of the class. So to add ready-made activities to this presentation, what I would do is click on the plus sign, and it gives me the menu. Looks kind of similar to what we started with, where I can add any of these ready-made activities to my presentation. Many of these are games and activities that are also available to be added within the full Smart Notebook software. But you can add them in Smart Learning Suite very quickly as well. So I'm just going to go through each one, kind of go over each one individually, just so you get a feel for what they are. Number one, if I wanted to add a YouTube, I could just type in, you can search for YouTube right here. Now I'm going to just say, I should say world, not work. So world languages. So if I found a YouTube video that I wanted to show the class, what I would do is select on it and click add. Now the nice thing about adding a YouTube video through Smart Notebook or Smart Learning Suite is when it goes to play, it actually eliminates all the advertising and also like the up next videos. So you're basically getting a fresh slide with just your video, and there's no way to access the ads from here. And of course, you know, I can play this in the presentation.
Hi, I'm Taylor, and welcome to
And here it plays within its own
How many
window.
languages there are in the world?
Some other items that you can add to your presentation. Number one, you can add a new page, like a new blank page to your presentation at any time. And sometimes this is helpful. Maybe in the middle of teaching, you might want to just take some notes or display something. Maybe if you teach math, you might want to write out a sample question based on something that the students asked in class. If I go ahead and do that, it's just basically going to add a blank slide right here. I can edit, put a title on my slide. You can move this around if you want to, or I can delete all of, everything that's on here and kind of just start with a blank slide when I'm teaching my class. Other items in the ready-made activities is you have Shout It Out, which is a brainstorming activity. Responses allows you to do like a formative assessment with the kids, and you can have multiple questions for this. So, and then there's also a lot of game-based activities. So let's take a look at Shout It Out. If I was to create a Shout It Out activity, it's basically a brainstorm. So I'm going to start with a question and say, what languages do people in your family speak? Okay, so I might want to spell it correctly. Okay, so number one, I can leave this as just being a standard activity, which means all the responses just show up on one single screen and they're not really organized. You can also categorize the responses that the students give you. So for instance, I can add a category here. I could say, for instance, European languages, or African languages, whatever the case may be. I can also limit the number of responses, so I could say they can only make one response, or I could give them an option to give two. And I can also show or hide their names so that other students can either see who made the response or it's all posted anonymously. Even if you choose to hide the responses as a teacher, you'll be able to see which students posted. If I'm using categories, when the student responds, they're going to be asked to add their response under a category. And then the results on the page will just be organized under headings on the page. So basically, that's the difference between using categories. And I'll go ahead and hit next. And then I can have a classic way, like theme, how it shows up, or you can customize your theme a little bit. Like for instance, I could add background pictures here if I wanted to. I'll just pick an image so we can kind of see what it looks like. This is maybe not a great example, but we'll show you an idea. See, it puts like a background in here. So when the kids' responses, they're going to go on top of this background. When I hit finish, the activity looks like it's ready to go. If you go to edit the activity at any time, it basically is going to, like if you had already run this with your class, it will erase any of the student data if you go in and edit the activity. We'll take a look at how this looks for students in a few moments. Other activities that you can add here when we were talking about the formative assessments, there's many different answer types that you can add. So for instance, I could say my first question is today Monday? And it's a true-false question, so I can decide which is the correct answer. I'll say false for this and just say add the question. And now I can choose a different question and have multiple questions here. Now I'll just add another question and then hit next. And then it allows me to give some text instructions here and a title for my activity. And when I hit finish, this is ready to go. And when I deliver this lesson to students, they'll be prompted to answer those questions. There's also a lot of game-based activities. These are all the activities that are available in Smart Notebook as well. And so you can choose any of these, and then you just, like if I chose to match them up, it basically allows me to have two different categories. So I'll say country, like match the country with the language. And you'll just set up your activity etc. Um, and when the answers are checked, do we want to give them feedback when prompted or instant feedback? I'm going to do instant feedback. And then I get to put a background here, or I can have like a simple design if I prefer. But you can have like a kind of like a fancy game looking background if you like. I guess I'll choose the rock concert to see what it looks like. And we'll show you that activity in a few minutes when we go through these ready-made activities. Other activities that you have in here, these are a lot of, there's some templates in here. So for instance, if I went to activating prior knowledge, there's templates for different activities on how to do that. And there's even an option to add an entrance ticket where the students would tell you what they know about a certain subject at the beginning of the class, kind of like an exit ticket. If I chose questioning and reflecting, it's very similar. It's just more end of activity type of options, including things like the exit ticket. So these are just options for students to summarize at the end of the class, what did they learn in the lesson. They'll be able to fill it out, and you as a teacher will be able to see their responses. We're going to cancel that. Actually, yes. We'll X out of that one. Some other options here, there are manipulatives that you can use. So depending on what you teach, some of these might be nice, but you can actually create interactive calendars that you and the students can populate together. You can create manipulatives that have to do with counting money or counting blocks, doing fraction tiles, even telling time. So there's a lot of different manipulatives. They even have musical notes here. I guess I'll choose the musical notes so we can take a look at it. But it basically just allows, this one in particular, allows me to kind of write my own music by putting the notes up on the screen. And you can make this would be an activity that both students and teachers can kind of work on together. So you can essentially like write your own music here. These are great to explore based on, activities that you currently do in the classroom. So looking at some of the manipulatives as you're playing here and trying one out and adding it to your lesson, I think is an excellent idea. Other things that you can do is also add graphic organizers. So they have a lot of templates for different graphic organizers that you can add into your presentation. So even if I wanted to do something simple like, we could even do a story map. You can set this up, but this is something that you can kind of work through as a group, and the entire group can kind of add their thoughts together, or you can even make this a group activity. So I'll leave that in my slide for now. At this point, we're going to have you take the opportunity in the next section to add an existing presentation and kind of practice adding some of these ready-made activities to your presentation. Right now, what I want to do is pull up the student view for a moment so that you can kind of see, in fact, let's grab this guy. Just move him over to the side so we can see side by side the student and the teacher view here. So when I go to, now I'm going to finish editing, and I'm going to actually start the lesson instead of editing it so we can kind of see what that looks like from the student perspective. The student view is over on the right-hand side. So again, as the teacher, I control the lesson because I'm in a, right now and we'll talk about this in the next section, but I'm in a teacher-paced activity. So I'm just going to go back and launch this. So the first one is the YouTube. When I hit play.
Hi, I am Taylor and welcome to Craft Gamebased.
This is kind of set so that the student would actually hit play and watch the video on their own. I'm going to move now to the next screen. See how this one looks. This was just the blank screen that I had on here, but as a teacher, I could actually say, okay, we had a little question in class, so we are going to go over this example and kind of walk through how to see this, and you see that, actually divided by 4, I should know how to do math better than this, whatever. But you'll see the presentation, whatever I'm writing, is showing up on the student screen as well. And now I'm going to do the shout it out activity. I did do this one with categories. So when I'm doing the response, what languages does your family speak at home? I'm going to say English. And I'll select a category. That's maybe a European language. And I'm going to send that response and see how that is going to add it into the European category. I don't know how to spell Swahili very well, but I'm just going to make it up and just say that that's an African language they speak, and my response shows up over here. Okay, moving on to the next activity. This was the formative assessment, so when I say start for class, it kind of looks like the student is today Monday. I can either say true or false and go to the next question. I guess that was the only question I had there, so I can submit my answers at any time and hit submit. As a teacher, I can see live progress. If I show live results, it's going to show me the entire class response for each of the questions that I have. Let's move on to the next activity. This was the match 'em up that I created with the rocking and roll background. So I'm going to hit start on here. The student would also hit start to begin the activity. And then they have to match them up. So if in Spain, they speak Spanish. And if it's correct, it kind of gives me applause here. In France, if I actually got it incorrect and did Germany, since I did instant responses, it won't take the answer. So it only will force them to get their answers correctly. Once I go down to the next, it's going to bring me to the next activity. So here's the interactive creation page that we used, and the student can also add to this page, or they can just view what the teacher is doing here. You, as a teacher, would determine whether the students have access to this. I actually did not specifically give them access, so they're only able to see what I'm doing on the screen. They're not really able to participate here. And of course, when I go to the next screen, it's going to switch. Now we're at the graphic organizer. Again, this is something that I, as a teacher, if you notice, the student does not have access to type onto the graphic organizer. It's just something that they're going to view. But as a teacher, I do have the editing tools, so I can either type or I can draw into the boxes here. If I chose the drawing tool, and I had a stylus, I can actually, write the problem right on the screen if I want to. Okay, and the student will see exactly what we're doing, see it typed into the graphic organizer as you present the information. So in most of the ready-made activities, if it's game-based, the student will be prompted to participate. If it's a graphic organizer or a manipulative, it's something that they watch the teacher participate in. So that's the view from the teacher versus the student view with the ready-made activities. So now it's an opportunity for you as a teacher to add some of these into your presentation. And on Thursday, when we have the opportunity to present and be teachers and students for each other, you'll be able to see this in action from both the student view as well as the teacher view.